Hi, this is Beth McCullough, and I blog at stampingmom.com. I'm here with my sweet husband, Steve,
Hi, everybody.
and we have a fun topic for you. This is all about measuring, a little bit of fractions, and the trimmer, but don't be scared away. This is fun. I got introduced to making cards about 20 years ago. No one told me how to make the card base. So I did what every new card maker would do. I went to Michael's and bought them. But I'm going to show you how to do it so you can make your own. It is less expensive that way. And it's good to know how to do it.
Plus, you have all of the amazing Stampin' Up colors to choose from for your card base.
Right. But this video is not just about that. This is for all card bakers, no matter what supplies they use.
Okay.
Okay, so here we're going to start with measuring. And this, okay, on my ruler, an inch is this big. We've blown it up. Here is one great big inch, okay? So most people know if you go halfway between the 0 and the 1, you have a half an inch, right? And then if you divide that inch into 4 pieces, you have fourths. 1/4, 2/4, which is a half, 3/4, and 4/4, which is 1. We're going to keep breaking that down.
Notice how the lines are the longest for the half inch and then not quite as long for the fourth.
The lines get shorter. So now the 1/8 of an inch is the next longest line. So if we divide the inch into 8 equal parts, we have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8, which is 1 inch. So instead of putting all the 8s on there, because 1/8, 2/8 is the same as a quarter, you just know, right? Because you can still count these all the way across for the 8s. Now 16ths, it's the same thing. If we covered all this up, you would have an inch divided into 16 equal pieces. So if you counted the inches up to 8, 8/16 would equal your half. So don't get discouraged by all the lines. Some card makers mainly do quarters and halves. Some do 8s. 16ths, if you can do 16ths, you can do it all, right? That's really the lowest we go. So hopefully this makes sense. So this is a 1 inch, which is 1 inch on your ruler. Now let's look at the trimmer. I really like the Stampin' Up Trimmer. And when you look at this, you're starting at 0 where the blade is cutting. You have 1 inch, 2 inches, all the way out here to 17 inches. I don't know if you can see that. And there's another place where you have a ruler. It's right here on the bar of the trimmer. Now, I cut a piece of paper 1/4 of an inch, and I used mini glue dots, and I attached it inside my trimmer, because as you get more advanced, sometimes you have a card where you need to cut from 2 inches down to 4 inches and make a slit in the middle of the card. And you can do that by having this ruler on the arm.
And you can see it after you put the paper in.
Right, it's hard to see it before you put the paper in. But for now, just look at this. So this is 1 inch. And you know this other line that's almost as long, that's got to be a half an inch, okay? Sometimes, like on this trimmer, it's hard to tell where the seam is. So I wrote myself a note. Where this arm opens, that's 6 1/4 inches. And I just put it on there so that I don't have to remember, because it gets a little tricky as they transition between the two.
But that's interesting how they don't have the numbers on the lines, but they do still have the lines of different lengths.
They do. They absolutely do. Now let me show you in the United States and Canada, wherever we do imperial, that's what they call it. Our cardstock is 8.5 inches wide and 11 inches long. To make a card base, you're cutting your piece of cardstock in half. And I like to score my cardstock before I cut it. So when I get done with a piece of cardstock, it's cut and scored. So I told you it was 8.5 wide. So I'm going to put this left edge at 4 1/4. And with my trimmer, this light gray is the scoring blade. So I'm going to score, and I have my cardstock lined up on this line all the way down. So I've scored it with the short side at the top. Now I'm going to turn the long side at the top, and this is 11 inches. So half of that is 5.5. So I'm going to line up this left edge at 5.5, and I'm going to use the dark blade and cut it. So now I have 2 card bases that are equal. You can take a bone folder if you want and crease that. So each piece of cardstock makes 2 card bases. And you can cut them this way. Some people call this a book fold because it's like opening a book. And when you do a book fold card, they can open sideways or top to bottom. So I'm going to show you 2 of those. These 2 cards were cut this exact way, okay? But when I went to make them into cards, I have this card opening like a book, and I have this card opening up and down. But it's the same way. I just made them, I decorated them in a different direction. Okay, now let's do the other option. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to score at 5.5. Both times it's 4.25 and 5.5 is halfway. So I'm going to score at 5.5. I just run it down twice. I'm not sure why. With the long side at the top. Now put the short side at the top and put the left edge at 4.25. Use the dark blade and cut it. Now see how this is cut differently, but it's the same size card. So here's one, and here's the other, cut 2 different ways. So on this one, I'm going to go ahead and burnish the score lines again, and I'll show you 2 cards made cut from that direction. So here they are. This one, I just decorated it up and down. And this one, I turned it sideways. And it's like this.
So it's like a long book.
Yes. Sometimes people call this the tent. So I have 4 cards here. These 2 were cut the same way. And these 2 were cut the opposite way. But then I ended up with a card going in each direction from both. Does that make sense, Steve?
It does make sense.
So get out a piece of cardstock, score it in one direction at 4.25 on the short side, 5.5 on the long side, score in one direction and then cut in the other, and you get 2 card bases out of 1 sheet. And remember, on this measuring, you just count the little lines and don't be afraid of it. You will get the hang of it. I know you can do this. And card making is so much fun.
Can I give my one piece of advice?
What's your piece of advice,
My
Steve?
piece of advice is I was told by your father, the engineer, measure twice, cut once.
Good.
And so when I try to use your trimmer, I get the paper all lined up. I think it's exactly right. I stop, pull the paper out, and then put it back again, making sure that I actually have the right measurements. And I have to admit, about 1 out of 3 times, I had it the wrong way. And it was a good thing I checked it, because otherwise I would have done it.
A free tip from Steve. Measure twice, cut once. I hope you enjoy card making. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm Beth McCullough, and I blog at stampingmom.com. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.